Hello everyone, welcome to week 11 of art class with Mr. Maddie. We are jumping into the Renaissance art, which is really heavily based on perspective. You'll find that throughout this unit, most of what we do is model, draw, illustrate, and reflect about linear perspective. Now, linear perspective is a fancy word for drawing things in depth or drawing things with form to look realistic, or at least to look like they're in 3 dimensions. When you first start drawing as a kiddo, you tend to draw things really flat, right? Maybe rather square. Okay, we're going to learn to make things a little more developed by adding depth. Okay, so our objective for today is to illustrate a graphic organizer for perspective. And why are we doing this? Well, we're scaffolding, or we're learning the skills on how to draw things realistically. And a great way to start with that is simply using a graphic organizer, which I'll walk you through today. Your success criteria is to follow along with me, draw to the best of your ability, and label all of the vocab we go over in this demonstration. I'll have a nice visual aid for you in the next maybe about 5 minutes when I'm done with this demonstration, and you will match my drawing to the best of your ability. So this is the first of a few graphic organizers, and I'm going to go real fast. I want you to slow down and to use a ruler. I've done this so much, I'm not going to use a ruler today, and I kind of want to practice my skills. I actually don't have a plan. I just know the language I'm going to use and the basic concepts of linear perspective. So anytime you're doing a perspective drawing, you want to start with a horizon line. H-O-R-I-Z-O-N. Go ahead and draw a line through the middle of your 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, or about some printer paper. You can fold it in half like I did and just label horizon. And I always remember horizon because when you draw through it, it makes an H for horizon. Now this is where the sun comes up and the sun sets. In Utah, we have these big old mountains that kind of obscure the horizon. Where I'm from, the Northeast, it's very flat. So our horizon for today is going to be nice and flat, and we're going to draw 3 different cubes above, at, and below the horizon. Okay, so my cubes are really sloppy and fast. I challenge you to use rulers, but for today, it's okay to be nice and loose. Now, to turn a square to a cube, you need 3 dimensions. Now, a square is flat, like so. A cube appears rather 3-dimensionally. All right? So I have my square. It's not perfect, but I'm just practicing right now. I'm going to play Connect the Dot. Now, you'll note that I drew all of my squares left of my page. And I'm doing that because I want you to practice drawing cubes with a vanishing point in the middle. Okay, so at this point we have a horizon line. Square above the horizon line, square on the horizon line, square just below, and somewhere in the middle of the page, I think dead middle is great. If you want to put it further over here, that's fine. But you're going to put a dot, and this is called your vanishing point. I want you to write that out, vanishing point. I'll just use a P and a T. Put an arrow to where it is. Okay, so this vanishing point is where you connect the dots of your cubes to make them look realistic. Now you'll note that at the horizon line, I only have 2 dots that I'm going to play Connect the Dot with. All right, and as you go above, you're going to expose the bottom of your cube, and as you go below the horizon line, you expose the top. So it looks something like this. You'll see rather than 2 dots that I'm going to connect to my vanishing point, as you go above, you're going to connect 3. 1, 2, 3. Now it's a lot easier to use a ruler when you do this. Here's a really big ruler. You can literally just pivot your ruler off of your vanishing point to make your connections. But I want to show you how fast and loose this can be. You'll also notice that when I draw, I'm drawing as lightly as humanly possible. I'm barely grazing the page. I'm real fast. You want to be as light as you can. If you're using a mechanical pencil, if you click, click, click the lead out longer, it'll force you to draw lighter because you'll keep snapping your lead. If you're not using a mechanical pencil, which is what I prefer, you'll find it's a lot easier. So I have my cube above, at, and below. And what I want to do now is snip my strings. Think of these as my puppet, right? It's almost like a puppet here. It looks cool, but I want it to look more convincing. So this is where math comes into play. We need to know the difference between parallel and perpendicular, okay, and converging, okay. So parallel lines never intersect, okay. In fact, I'm going to label that parallel, and the symbol for that is this. This is an example of parallel lines. Go ahead and draw some parallel lines right now. Right here, we have perpendicular, P-E-R-P-E-N-D-I-C-U-L-A-R. Okay, these are lines that intersect at a right angle or 90 degrees. And right here, this little spider I have right here, this is converging. C-O-N-V-E-R-G-I-N-G. Converging lines are these lines. These lines, as a matter of fact, I'm going to get rid of this. These lines are your lines that connect your dots to your vanishing point. Now, converging lines converge. All right. Parallel lines flow together. Here's an example of a set of parallel lines. You'll note that my cube for this demonstration, the tops and bottoms of my cube are parallel to the horizon line, or the top and bottom of my page. And alternatively, the edges of my cubes are perpendicular to my horizon line, or they are parallel to the edge of my page. I like to, when I'm first starting this, I keep it nice and square to keep things simple. Now, let's snip these strings. Let's make it look a little more realistic. And what I'll do is I'll just find somewhere to place another set of parallel lines. And because we're working very square with the page, right, if I drew a square up here, you'll see that all these squares flow with the top edge and the side edge of my paper. It's just really easy to start this way. And this is why. Once you start snipping the edge of your cube here to make it look realistic, you'll note that these two lines are parallel and these two lines are parallel. And if I were to reference this line to the top of my page, it would be parallel. And if I were to reference this edge to the edge of my page, it would be parallel. And it's just a great graphic or visual way to understand what's going on. So once I do this, I'm going to come down with a darker line by putting more pressure on my cube to make it look a little more three-dimensional. Sometimes I'll erase this a little bit just so I can see what's going on here, to see where this is disappearing, right? Remember when you're at your parallel, when your cube is on the horizon line, you're not going to see the bottom or the top. You're just going to see the front of your cube. And I sometimes get confused when I see those lines, so I might erase them. But I want my horizon line to stick out. And let's go ahead, I'll just follow, say right about here. So that is parallel to the edge, as well as the edge of the paper. Let's come in here and give it a more pressure so it kind of pops. It's starting to make sense. Down here, similar to the top, I can see the top of my cube because it's below the horizon line. And this line is parallel to this line. This line is parallel to here. And this line is parallel to here. Okay. So where lines are not parallel, you'll notice the edges, right? None of these lines, none of these converging lines are parallel because this is what gives it the depth. These lines get tight and things seem to disappear. That's why they literally call it the vanishing point, because things literally tend to disappear right back here. Now this is a very rough start. I think it's helpful to find a light source. I'll draw a sun over here. I think it's really helpful to draw a light source or have reference of a light source when you're doing this to get a better understanding of how these things look. So if the sun is coming directly sideways, I'll probably have a little bit of shading right up top. I can just smudge it out with my finger, and maybe it's a little darker on the bottom. I don't know. I find when I was first learning these concepts, shading was really helpful. Now you don't have to do this, but you'll see that once you do it, it really does help pull things together. I'm going real fast. I'm not too concerned about it being perfect, but you'll see suddenly these shapes just jump right off the page. And you have to be a little bit of a scientist. You have to be a creative problem solver. Where is my light going or coming from, right? So if my sun's up here, maybe this will be the brightest part. I'll have the top be the brightest. This will be like medium, dark. Smudge it out with my fingers. And then, sure, let's make this side darkest. Okay. So we're going to be doing a few of these graphic organizers because we got to learn some skills. And starting with the cube, the most basic shape, is the best way to do it. So here's your success criteria. I want you to label, give an example of parallel lines. Okay. Label an example of perpendicular, lines that intersect at 90 degrees. And label your vanishing point, your horizon line, and your converging lines. This is a very quick, rough start to our graphic organizers, and it's going to be helpful to label it, so let's call this first point, P-O-I-N-T, perspective. We'll learn more about the details to what makes this perspective pop. And what you just did was a first point linear perspective. And you'll wonder, why is this called 1 point perspective? Well, everything goes to 1 point. There's actually not only 1 point perspective, there's 2 point perspective. There's 3 point perspective. I've even heard of 4 and 5 point perspective, which essentially is like a fish eye perspective. But we're going to start real basic. So here are your 3 cubes. Draw your 3 cubes to the best of your ability, and the more we practice, the easier this will come to us. And by the time we're done practicing some of these graphic organizers, you will be designing your very own city by yourself. And I'm super excited about that. Think Minecraft, think blocky, think cubes, and have fun with it. If you have any questions, let me know. I know I went pretty quick with this. But in the next couple months, you're going to become masters of perspective. All right. Have a good day. Ciao.